welcome to today's live stream, Currents at the Conservancy, our 2024 program highlights. My name is Stacy Leonard. I'm the events manager and the Source to Sea cleanup coordinator here at Connecticut River Conservancy, and it's great to see so many friendly faces out there. This end of year wrap up has become a new tradition for us as a way to reflect aloud on the past year's programs and accomplishments. We also love to have this moment to extend our gratitude to you, all of our friends and members, for being on this journey with CRC as we all endeavor for clean water, healthy habitats, and resilient communities. A bit about today's format. There's actually 10 CRC staff here today who are going to speak. And I'll be introducing our first speaker in a moment. Then each speaker will introduce and pass the mic to the next. So we're just going to roll from one to the other, and hopefully it will all flow seamlessly. I'd like to share a few reminders before we get started. Please keep your mic on mute during the presentation so our speakers can be heard without distractions. We do encourage your questions and ask you to type them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Then we'll save time at the end to answer as many as possible. And there will be several staff who can stay on past one, probably till about 1:15 to continue that conversation. As with all of our live streams, we're recording this episode and you'll be able to see it posted on our YouTube channel by the end of the day, where you can also view other past live streams from our 5 years of running these. And finally, by the end of today, you'll also get an email with a link to the recording, resources, and all the ways that you can stay connected to CRC's important work. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce our first speaker, CRC's Executive Director, Rebecca Todd, now in her second year at the helm. Take it away, Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Todd, and I want to thank you first for all that you do for our shared watershed and for your interest in CRC. I know many of you are volunteers, members, or donors, and in whatever way you engage with us, I thank you. 2024 has been an extraordinary year. I have been in the stern seat of this canoe for just over a year, and we have covered some river miles. You have helped us sustainably grow our budget, and we have increased our permanent staff from 25 to 30 talented and dedicated employees. We have also grown our board. We have added fabulous new trustees from each of our 4 watershed states. And our new trustees have deep experience in policy and legislation, law and compliance, organizational efficiency, climate science and climate justice, sustainability, environmental education, and wetlands ecology. They are dedicated to helping make a difference in our communities. And if you would like to learn more about them, I invite you to our website, ctriver.org. Under the About section, you'll find more information about our fabulous new trustees. We've also grown our physical space. Headquarters for CRC is a lovely brick building built in 1813 as the first courthouse in Greenfield, Massachusetts. We have been doing some important repairs to the building and renovating this national and state historic building to accommodate our growing staff. So please come by and say hello. We have lots of extra paintbrushes ready for you. This fall, we received the largest grant since our founding in 1952, thanks to our new stream restoration specialist, Lauren Zielinski. So we will put $11.46 million to work in New Hampshire, doing important restoration and forest management projects with private landowners. So through those projects, we are going to be sequestering carbon, removing nitrogen, and preventing sedimentation in the river. And of course, by improving habitats in New Hampshire, we directly help the river in Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and improve the health of Long Island Sound. So environmental psychologists tell us that if we damage the exterior world, we damage our interior world. I also like to think that when we improve the exterior world, we also improve our interior world. And we plan to continue to improve both our exterior and interior worlds in 2025. Speaking of planning, this winter we embark on strategic planning, and there's tremendous excitement from the staff and the board about what CRC might be doing in the next 5 years. If you would like to help us think through strategic planning, please drop me a note at rtodd@ctriver.org. I would love your input. For now, let us tell you more about our work in 2024. So allow me to introduce our amazing new aquatic ecologist, Dr. Kate Buckman, formerly the New Hampshire River Steward, to tell you about the exciting scientific discoveries that she made this year. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Rebecca. Welcome, everyone. Yes, my name is Dr. Kate Buckman, and I am moving into the role as aquatic ecologist and taking over both migratory and non-migratory fish work at CRC, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to do that. I'm going to take a few minutes just to tell you about some of the exciting work that CRC completed in our migratory fish program in 2024. As you can see on the little teeny tiny map on the right-hand side, there are both more species and more individuals of migratory fish in the southern part of the Connecticut River than in the northern part. Despite that, CRC conducts migratory fish work in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. This year, we were thrilled to conduct the first ever sea lamprey nest surveys on the Cold River, the Sugar River, and Partridge Brook in New Hampshire. And we are also really excited to find sea lamprey nests in all 3 of those places. We also continued our annual nest survey for the Ashwellet River in New Hampshire and the Sawmill River in Massachusetts, getting well over 100 nests in the Ashwellet with the help of many community members who went out and walked the river with us looking for them. We helped the state of Vermont complete their transect of the West River in Vermont, all the way down to the confluence with the Connecticut River. Speaking of sea lamprey, we also partnered with USGS to conduct the annual sea lamprey rescue in the Turners Falls Canal after it is drained for maintenance in the fall. We had over 30 volunteers participate this year, and it was a wonderful event. Over 3,000 little sea lamprey were rescued from the canal, and a great time was had by all. We wish we didn't have to rescue them, but we're grateful that so many people are willing to come out and help us do that. We've continued partnering in our work with the Connecticut River Migratory Fish Restoration Cooperative. Part of that has involved conducting environmental DNA or eDNA surveys for eel and lamprey in tributaries in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, looking to see where habitat that we might not know those species we're using are. And we were very excited this year to be able to take on an independent eDNA research project looking for the presence of short-nosed sturgeon north of Turners Falls, Massachusetts. And we're thrilled with the results from that study, and we were able to find positive detections for short-nosed sturgeon in between the Turners Falls and the Vernon Dam, and also in between the Vernon and the Bellows Falls Dam. That was very exciting for us, and I think a powerful example of how we can move both the science and the advocacy forward by collaborating with good partners. Additionally, we've been able to continue our work with other members of the Connecticut River Migratory Fish Restoration Cooperative, conducting fish counts at ladders and passages at the dams, helping with surveying for juvenile shad during their fall migration back out to the ocean, conducting creel surveys in Massachusetts and Connecticut so we can understand how people are using the river, what fish they're catching, and which ones they're keeping and throwing back. As well as many events around migratory fish, particularly centered in 2024 on the World Fish Migration Day in May. I'm also excited to report that we've received funding to be able to continue and expand all of these activities in 2025. And I'm hoping that I get to meet many of you out on the river, perhaps looking for sea lamprey nests or collecting water for eDNA surveys. We appreciate all of your interest and support for our migratory fish program, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow it in the future. Now I'm going to pass it over to Ava Gandhi, who's going to talk a little bit about our aquatic invasive species work.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, my name is Ava, and I am the Environmental Education and Outreach Assistant with CRC. There are two aquatic invasive species that CRC focuses on, and these are water chestnut and hydrilla. To begin, water chestnut continues to threaten clean water and healthy habitat in the Connecticut River watershed. Water chestnut affects ecosystems by crowding out native plants that are food sources for native animals. It also covers the surface of the water, which affects the levels of sunlight that can break through to the native aquatic plants, and that, of course, inhibits their ability to perform photosynthesis, and therefore reduces the oxygen levels in the water. Dissolved oxygen levels also decrease when the plant decomposes into the water. When these different phenomenons lower the oxygen, it greatly affects the water quality and also harms the ecosystem. These plants also can impede fishing, hunting, swimming, and boating because the plant can congest streams, block boats, and hurt fish populations. The link in the slide is to the interactive map we have that shows where the infestations are in the Connecticut River watershed. Despite the persistent nature of this plant, we have made substantial efforts to address this issue. We have removed 174,000 water chestnut plants from the watershed. There has been 2,245 hours of collaborative work contributed from staff and volunteers combined. There have been 237 volunteers that participated in removal events in 2024, and there have been 111 separate events to remove water chestnut plants. I myself have attended one of this past summer's water chestnut removal plants, and I used one of the foldable Oru kayaks that CRC provides to staff and volunteers, and it was a great experience to work towards a common goal with local residents of the removal area. The second aquatic invasive species that we focus on, as mentioned, is hydrilla. Hydrilla continues to be a major invasive species issue affecting the lower part of the Connecticut River in Connecticut and Massachusetts and is spreading rapidly. Hydrilla cannot be removed by hand like water chestnut because it spreads by fragmentation rather than seed. Hydrilla affects the ecosystem similarly to water chestnut, where it crowds out native plants, but it also is a thick plant that slows down the movement of water, which increases eutrophication, which means a buildup of nutrients and runoff, which worsens water quality. And the plant also can affect fish migration because it can be hard for fish to move through the plant. The current status of hydrilla is that 842 acres of hydrilla have been found in the Connecticut River from Agawam, Massachusetts to Long Island Sound. And this year it has been spreading rapidly to lakes in Connecticut and Massachusetts, clearly being spread via boats and trailers. For public awareness, we have and will continue to table at farmers markets throughout the watershed and educate folks on hydrilla, prevention techniques like clean, drain, dry, and other important river topics. If you're not familiar with the phrase clean, drain, dry, it is a best management practice to help prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. Clean meaning inspect and remove all visible plant material, animals, and mud or other debris at the boat launch. Do not transport them home. Also check the trailer, boat, ropes, and paddles for any debris. Drain means to eliminate water from every conceivable space and item before leaving the area, and dry means to allow for about 5 days of drying time for your equipment before entering a new body of water. We also partner with the Office of Aquatic Invasive Species and Army Corps of Engineers on field demonstration to determine efficacy of herbicides on hydrilla in the Connecticut River. This summer, herbicides were applied to 5 test sites. We are awaiting official results, but initial observations look promising. There are many grants that have funded this work, including the Sestero Fund from the Harvard Foundation for Public Giving, the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Aquatic Invasive Species Grant, and the Janvrin Fund from the Community Foundation for Middlesex County, and many more. Now we're going to hear about recreation from Ron.
Thanks, Abby. Good afternoon, everyone. Ron Rhodes, Director of Programs, which means I work with the 5 program managers that you have or will hear from today. One of those people is Gabriel. She could not be with us today, so you're stuck with me giving the recreation update. We do a lot of recreation and access related work that Gabriel oversees and works with our partners. Maybe the biggest one we've got going right now is the one in Holyoke. We're partnering with Holyoke Rose and the city of Holyoke. They have federal ARPA funding that is being used to increase and improve the river access site that is currently there. There'll be a new dock, new signage, etc., so that swimmers, fishers, boaters, paddlers all have a better and more enjoyable river access site there in Holyoke. We also work with the Connecticut River Paddlers Trail. We're one of the member groups. We work with all the other organizations in all 4 states on that group. The real focus in the last several years has been on expanding access sites in Massachusetts and Connecticut. So just this year, Gabriel and our partners were able to get the approval to have a new campsite in East Hartford. And we're working on a second one that will hopefully come online and be available to folks that are paddling, usually through paddlers, but it's occasionally, weekend paddlers that need a place to stay the night on the river. Last several years, we have also hosted on the New England Paddle Sports Championship. And this summer, we had over 50 people. The race was a success, and it was also great because we didn't have any floods this year. So we were actually able to do the race. We were flooded out one year. In addition, we have canoes and kayaks that we use both for some of the work that Ava was talking about to get volunteers out to do the hand pulling, but also for our events. Gabriel and Stacy work on paddling events. And if you've ever been to, say, one of our annual meetings, you would potentially join us on one of these group paddles before or after the meeting. If you haven't done that, feel free to join us. And we're always looking for volunteers, as Ava mentioned, on those. So if you're comfortable in a canoe or a kayak and you want to get out and help pull invasives or just have a fun afternoon on the river, let us know. And I think that's it. So turning it over to Fritz Gerhardt, our conservation scientist, and you're going to hear about restoration projects.
Hello, yes, I'm Fritz Gerhardt, conservation scientist with the restoration program. And it's been 2024 has been a very busy year. We've been out doing a large number of projects. As you can see on the map on the left there, the colored dots are the locations of projects that we completed in 2024. Projects were located in 4 of the states in the watershed, 14 different towns. Probably one of our best known restoration projects are the tree planting projects we do to restore forested shorelines or forested floodplains. This year we planted over 7,000 native trees and shrubs on almost 14 acres of river and stream shoreline. And these are they're involved projects. They require the investment and interest of landowners. The trees and shrubs that are provided by the native plant nurseries in Vermont and Massachusetts primarily and of course, the labor provided by both CRC staff and volunteers as well, and contracted planting crews. So we had a busy spring and fall planting trees, and I know we are currently lining up projects for 2025, putting in our plant orders, arranging the crews as well. We've also been doing several other types of floodplain and shoreline restoration projects. Stacy, if I could have the next slide, please. One of the things that we were very excited about in 2024 is that we were able to get some funding to go out and monitor a number of the past planting projects that were completed really about 2017 to 2024. We went out, monitored 20 sites. We had good to great growth and survival at 13 of those sites, and those were really exciting to see. My favorite, I think, was the photo at the bottom there of a silver maple that we planted in 2019. So 5 years ago, it was 47 inches tall, 4 feet tall, and when we went out and measured it this year, it was 19 feet tall. The ruler leaning up against the tree there is 8 feet. So really exciting to see such fantastic growth and survival at many of our sites. We did have some sites where there were problems. Several of the sites where we had flood damage, severe deer browse, high mortality due to voles and bindweed. We'd either have already gone out and replanted them, or we now have plans to go out, put tree wrap where voles are a problem, maybe put some tree tubes at the site that has severe deer browse. So those sites where we will go out and fix the problems that we've identified, and if necessary, plant more trees as well. And we are hoping to do additional monitoring and that maintenance in the coming year. Another site down in Plymouth, Vermont, really exciting project along the Penny Hollow Brook stream. We were able to go in there and remove a berm that was keeping the water in the stream channel, forcing all that water to flow quickly and at greater depths downstream, and causing flood damage along the state highway there and the fields downstream of there. So this year we were out removing the berm. It was 3 to 4 feet high. The shoreline was 3 to 4 feet higher than it is now. Now that we've removed the berm, the floodwaters can access the floodplain when they're high. And we'll go out next year, and that's one of the sites we'll replant with native trees and shrubs. And the other area where we were working on floodplain forest restoration is a multi-year project in collaboration with Vermont Fish and Wildlife. We took about 10 acres of old hayfield, we mowed it, we plowed up or rototilled it to create bare soil. We used herbicide to kill the mostly reed canary grass, which is dominant on these old hayfields. And now that we've done that, back in 2024, back in June, we went out and spread seeds of native plants on that bare soil. So you can see my colleague Pete Emerson from Vermont Fish and Wildlife spreading the silver maple seeds, but we had a whole suite of different native tree and shrub seeds. And as you can see in the lower photo to the right there, the seeds are now able to fall onto the bare soil, and hopefully they'll germinate. We'll be out there next spring and summer measuring, counting seedlings. Hopefully there will be a lot to see on this exciting possible new approach to restoring large areas of floodplain where it's difficult to plant 10 acres of trees. That's like 4,000 trees at one time. So also, another part of our restoration work has been removing dams and replacing undersized culverts, and my colleague Becky is going to tell you about those.
Hey everybody, my name is Becky Budd. I'm the Restoration Program Manager at CRC. And I just want to start by saying that the restoration team gets a great deal of happiness from removing obsolete dams to reconnect rivers. In the process, we get to work with so many great partners, including state and federal agencies, engineers, construction contractors, funders, and dam owners. We usually begin a project by applying for a grant to fund design and permitting. And step by step, we work toward construction implementation. It could take 3 to 5 years to complete one project, but everyone gets to just see the glorious last 4 to 6 weeks when construction actually happens. 2024 was a really busy year. We moved 3 dams and replaced 1 culvert, which restored 13 miles of habitat. And this brings our grand total to 24 dams removed, 6 culverts replaced, and 437 miles of habitat restored since 2014. Our northernmost project this year was a culvert replacement in Brunswick, Vermont at the Nullhegan Basin, which is part of the Conti Wildlife Refuge. This project improved aquatic organism passage on the Yellow Branch of the Nullhegan River. It was completed with funds through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and is the first in a series of several planned culvert replacements. The next one should happen next year. Our 3 dam removals this year were the Blake Higgins Dam on the Saxtons River in Westminster, Vermont, the Kimball Brook Dam in Stratford, New Hampshire, and the Dudleyville Dam on a tributary to the Sawmill River in Shutesbury, Mass. The Dudleyville Dam was our first ever dam removal in Massachusetts and was completed in record time this August after an emergency order was issued by the Shutesbury Conservation Commission. The Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration initially hired Stantec Engineering to complete a preliminary design for the project, and in the process found significant structural deficiencies, which led to the expedited removal. CRC helped find the funding, held the construction contract, and helped construction oversight. The removal is accomplished with funding through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as generous donations from Trout Unlimited chapters across the state, including Massachusetts Council, Squannatisset, Pioneer Valley, Greater Boston, Northeast, and the Connecticut River Atlantic Salmon Association. Normally, when we apply for grants, it could take 6 months or more to find if we even got it. So it's truly a testament to our generous and responsive funders that we were able to accomplish this project in the time frame we were given. The Kimball Brook project was originally slated for removal last year in 2023, but had to be postponed because of high water levels due to the many rainstorms we had last year. And it made it all the more satisfying when Ron Rhodes, our program director and project manager for that project, sent video of brook trout spawning in the newly formed channel, even before all the big yellow machines had been fully mobilized off-site. Support from this project was provided by grants from New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Fish Passage Program, and the Fidelity Foundation. Last but not least, we completed the removal of the Blake Higgins Dam and the phase 1, the first planting at the site. The project restored over a mile of prime spawning habitat for sea lamprey and resulted in the establishment of an official public access point and installation of really beautiful granite stairs down to the river edge by our partner, Vermont River Conservancy. For that project, we secured 6 different grants to accomplish it: a Clean Water Block Grant grant from Watershed United Vermont, a Conservation Alliance grant, Vermont Habitat and Aquatic Organism Passage grants, U.S. Fish and Wildlife funding, and also Fidelity Foundation. In addition to reconnecting 13 miles of river, which benefited brook trout, sea lamprey, and other aquatic organisms, these projects removed safety hazards in the community, improved water quality, reduced erosion, improved resiliency to climate change, and enhanced riparian buffer habitat. We couldn't do any of this work without support from our funders and our partners, and we're really, really grateful to be part of such a dedicated restoration community. I think that's it for me, and I'll pass it over to Ryan O'Donnell.
Hello, I'm Ryan O'Donnell, and I'm the Water Quality Program Manager here at CRC. So I oversee all of our water quality programs throughout the entire watershed. And of course, I can't accomplish monitoring in this large watershed alone. And so I was very happy this spring when we were able to bring on our lab and monitoring coordinator, Melissa Langley, full-time to help ensure that everything throughout the watershed runs smoothly. And then we also had help this summer from our seasonal water quality monitoring assistants, Sarah Gerhart, Stephanie Perkins, and Andrew Lefcourt. So they really helped make the wheels keep turning this year. We had around 90 volunteers throughout the watershed, collecting a variety of parameters in different areas. So our flagship program really is our E. coli monitoring, which is a bacteria that we use to help understand whether it is a good idea to go swimming or boating or fishing in a waterway. And that is at most of the sites that we monitor. And we have a lab in Greenfield, Massachusetts that tests for it. And we also got some help from the University of St. Joseph in Hartford to test our samples in Connecticut. We also collect bottles to test for nitrogen and phosphorus, chloride, turbidity, specific conductance, and we also have a microplastics monitoring program. So volunteers helped us collect all that and get them to the places they needed to go. All of our E. coli bacteria data is available on our Is It Clean website at ctriver.org/isitclean. And that website is also available for any other groups in the watershed that are collecting similar data, are welcome to and do upload their results to share with the public. And one thing that I'm very excited to be working on right now is we are in the process of revamping the website so that we can take advantage of all of the many new exciting web technology that exists since the initial website was first launched in I believe 2011 or 2012. So keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited for that. The Connecticut River watershed is a big watershed, and we certainly can't do it all. So one thing that I am always very pleased with is our many partnerships. So as I mentioned, we have a water quality lab in Greenfield. And so in addition to processing our own samples, we can help other organizations process their samples. And then also as a larger organization, I can provide my expertise with coordination or other technical support, or include groups in our funding initiatives. So some of our partners that we work with are the Deerfield River Watershed Association, the Fort River Watershed Association, Chicopee Four Rivers Watershed Council, Millers River Watershed Council, the Scantic River Watershed Association, the Black River Action Team, the Ottaquechee Natural Resource Conservation District, and the Connecticut River Joint Commissions. And I'm really happy that list has been growing, and I look forward to future partnerships. So we were in our second year of our cyanobacteria monitoring program, which cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green algae, although that's not quite scientifically correct for what it is. But what it is an increasing problem in our watershed that was identified by our members and our water chestnut volunteers as a concern. So with in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which helps us with equipment, we were able to monitor for cyanobacteria blooms at 13 sites in Massachusetts. And a report about that will be coming soon. And then we participated for another year in the Unified Water Study, which is headed up by Save the Sound, which is Long Island Sound. So we were part of many other groups that went out at sunrise in the embayment, or the mouth of the river where it meets Long Island Sound, went out at sunrise on a boat to collect water quality data twice a month. And one exciting thing was this year's report card, which was reporting on last year's data, showed that the Connecticut River embayment actually got better grade. It went from a B to an A minus, and so we're excited about that and hope to see the results of our work throughout the watershed continue to improve the water quality in Long Island Sound. In addition to, Save the Sound and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, who I already mentioned, the support from our many volunteers who get up early and go collect bottles of water, rain or shine, really make this program happen. And then also much of our support comes directly from our members, but also from, Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, and Watersheds United Vermont. So thank you to all of the many groups, people, partners, volunteers, staff that make this program possible. And I will pass it on to Nina.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nina Gordon-Kirsch. I'm the Massachusetts River Steward, and I have some advocacy and policy updates for everyone. So all of our river stewards in our 4 different states advocate for a cleaner, healthier Connecticut River through permitting, comments on legislation, environmental events, community outreach, and more. So I'm going to go through some of our 2024 successes, although there's many more that are not listed here. Up in Vermont, we celebrated the passage of the Flood Safety Act with policy changes to protect wetlands and river corridors and bolster dam safety. We also increased our local impact through environmental education run by our current Eco-AmeriCorps member, Claire. In New Hampshire, we commented on PFAS contamination. PFAS is a group of human-made chemicals created to repel water and dirt and oil. And PFAS has now been dubbed the forever chemical and has made its way into our water systems. We also submitted comments on legislative bills to state agencies on flooding, climate impacts, and water quality rules. And in New Hampshire, New Hampshire and Vermont, we hosted a sustainability fellow from Dartmouth to advance our knowledge and advocacy efforts regarding extended producer responsibility legislation. Extended producer responsibility legislation helps focus responsibility of the manufacturer to also include the end-of-life product. Common examples of that are tires and rechargeable batteries. In Massachusetts, we joined the first ever coalition of watershed groups in the state to begin a CS No campaign. CSOs are combined sewer overflows, which means that our storm pipes and sewer pipes are connected. So when we get a big rainfall, there can be sewer overflows into the Connecticut River. There's many obstacles to solving this issue, including archaic infrastructure and high cost of barriers. And our coalition is working together at a state level to solve the issue within our state watershed. We also have a group of volunteer citizens in Massachusetts working in the river valley towards legalizing more gray water discharge. Gray water is gently used water from showers and bathroom sinks that can be discharged to underground landscapes instead of going to sewers or septics. In Connecticut, we organized a group effort to support and strengthen a dam safety bill, and it passed. We also helped organize the first Long Island Sound River Restoration Network agencies and funders convening, which brought together folks from state agencies in Connecticut and New York, dam removal practitioners, and funders to think about streamlining pathways to river restoration. So those are some of our advocacy and policy updates, and now I'm going to pass it off to Kathy Erfer, our Director of Policy and Advocacy, and also our Vermont River Steward.
Great, thanks, Nina. I'm going to do a deep dive a little bit into one of our advocacy efforts that we've actually been working on for over 12 years, and that's the relicensing of 5 large hydropower facilities in kind of the heart of the Connecticut River in 3 states. So this year we're sort of at the end of the process, or coming to the end of the process, and so the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the the government body that issues licenses for these types of facilities, issued what's called a Ready for Environmental Analysis, which essentially triggers a final opportunity for comment on a final application for all 5 facilities. CRC submitted extensive comments in May of this year. And then as a result of that Ready for Environmental Analysis, both companies are required through the Clean Water Act to apply for what's called a 401 water quality certification in each state. And that was done in April of 2024. That began a year-long process with information sessions in each of the states to help people understand the 401 process and what that means. And there will be opportunities for the public to comment on draft water quality certifications for the projects in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts over the next few months. The states are required to submit a final water quality certification to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission by mid-April of next year. And that is what will then cause the proceeding through the federal government to continue. CRC over the course of the past couple months have submitted preliminary comments on this 401 water quality certification application and essentially provided suggestions, strongly worded suggestions to the states for conditions that should be included in the license in order to protect water quality, habitat, the stability of riverbanks, our migratory fish, and recreational access, among other details. So if you are signed up for our Hydro e-blast list, we will let you know when public comments open on these draft water quality certifications, which should be happening any day now, but certainly over the course of the next couple months. And then in addition, there will be next year an opportunity to comment on the federally required draft environmental impact statement, which covers all of the projects together and really looks at the cumulative impact of all of these facilities together. So plenty of opportunities to get involved and help us with our advocacy efforts. If you have not signed up for our Hydro e-blast newsletter, I would invite you to, and we can keep you in the loop on important advocacy efforts like this one. With that, I will pass it over to Stacy to finish us out.
All right, thanks, Kathy. Hi again, I'm Stacy Leonard, as I mentioned earlier, the events manager and Sources Sea cleanup coordinator. So we had a really exciting season of public events this year, one of our biggest in a long time, and certainly since COVID. Some of the highlights included a tour of the Conti Fish Lab in Turner's Falls, as pictured in the top right there, a fireside storytelling event, an exciting paddle sports race this summer that Ron mentioned earlier, and many other paddles, pontoon cruises, and outings in many communities throughout our 4-state watershed. What's exciting from the statistics shown on your screen is that we not only led a multitude of events, but our staff also partnered with so many wonderful organizations and leaders in the field to share our work and advocate for rivers more broadly. This live stream series, which this is a part of, which started during COVID, has continued to be a fabulous way for us to reach a broad geography of people, and we'll continue to run these next winter into spring as we await the moment when being warm outside and community returns. And just a reminder that there will be a follow-up email later today that will have links to lots of resources from today, and also a survey on how you can lend ideas and feedback about our live streams. Then, of course, our largest event of the year is the Sources Sea Cleanup. It's our longest running annual event. This was our 28th year, dedicated to keeping our rivers clean and our riverbanks green. This year, we had 117 volunteer group leaders who organized an additional cohort of volunteers across the watershed. and fanned out into parks, streams, and city streets to pick up trash. This critical work protects the habitat for all the critters who depend on clean rivers for survival and prevents trash from continuing downstream and into our oceans. We're so grateful for all the volunteers and supporters who put in this tremendous work. And there's a few photos of some groups in action, including our favorite dog. Beyond getting a group together and organizing logistics of their events, an additional job we ask of our group leaders is to track their trash, which is a somewhat tedious and time-consuming process, as some of you may know. This year, 74% of our groups fulfilled this assignment, which is our largest amount ever, and documented all the details from beverage containers to cigarette butts, tires to scrap metal. They found such oddball items as a Spider-Man helmet, an antique wall phone, a 10-pound kettlebell, fireworks, and even a kiddie pool. All told, over 39 tons of trash were collected this year. And just to put that into some sort of context, that's the equivalent of 7 elephants, or 38.6 leatherback sea turtles, or our personal river favorite, 3,700 adult short-nosed sturgeon. Over our 28 years, that brings our total tons of trash collected to 1,146 tons. So you can imagine if everyone was able to count their trash, these numbers would be even higher. You can see more of all of these statistics, our stories, photos, and more in the Cleanup Chronicle, which we just posted on our cleanup website, ctriver.org/cleanup, and will be coming to your mailboxes soon. We also share this data with American Rivers and the Ocean Conservancy, who put it to use when advocating for national and global policies, respectively. And of course, our river stewards do that in our region. So you can see the cleanup is more than just picking up trash. It's also part of a larger effort that includes reducing and recycling our waste, speaking up for legislative actions to reduce plastics and other pollutants, and advocating for producers to develop products that are less harmful to the environment. As Nina and Kathy shared earlier, CRC's river stewards are at the forefront of our advocacy efforts, rallying for stronger bottle bills and other measures to stop trash before it starts. And you can join in these efforts as well. The most expeditious way is to sign up for our e-newsletters. And again, that link will be in our email. So we're going to have to end here. I'll just say another huge thank you to all of the volunteers who came out, not only for the cleanup, but for all the programs that were talked about today, and to everyone for coming out to this live stream today. We're going to segue to our Q&A time. So I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to turn off the screen share and get to see folks, and people can also keep adding to the chat or raise your hands, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. If you do need to leave, we appreciate your time coming, and again, you can see the recording later on. So I'm going to start at the top and point to the respective staff member who may be appropriate for each question, if it isn't obvious. So the first question I see is, I think this was directed to Kate during your migratory fish talk. Why does the population drop off as you look north, naturally due to distance from the bay or because of barriers or water quality?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The answer is a little of both. Were the river completely unobstructed, you would still have, there are certain species that don't go nearly as far upriver to breed as others. Some, like the American eel, were historically found all the way up to the headwaters of the Connecticut River, while some of the other, like herring species, really wouldn't have gone much past the Massachusetts border for a couple of those species. The other issue is obviously, as you alluded to, human influence, right? And dams are a huge barrier for migratory fish. Even with fish passage installed at them, if the passage is not designed specifically for the needs for a particular species, they can still struggle to get beyond that dam. And so a lot of the drop off in numbers as you go farther north is due to issues with passage beyond dams. Unique thing about migratory fish is that they don't exist just in the river, right? They spend part of their life cycle in the ocean as well. And so one additional issue that these species face is problems around climate change and other issues that are affecting their ocean part of their life cycle in a different way than they are affecting their river part of their life cycle. I could talk for like an hour about this, so I'm gonna keep it brief and just say that there is some natural differences in how far upstream particular species would migrate, but there is a huge impact of human influence on both the number and the species and where they're able to migrate to as well. Hope that helps
Kate.
answer your question.
Yeah, and we will have more of Kate on a live stream in the new year, talking more about fish with her new hat on. Marcella also asked regarding water chestnuts, when you pull them, what do you do with the biomass to ensure that it dies?
Yeah, so from the water chestnut biomass that gets pulled gets put into a large compost bin with Blue Earth compost. And because it spreads by seed, when the seed goes through the incinerator at the compost, the seed is no longer viable. So it's proven to be an effective way to repurpose, I guess, the biomass.
Thanks, Eva. Erin asked, where did your funding come from to monitor the tree plantings? Maybe Fritz can speak to that.
We were very excited to get funding from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. They have they manage the Upper Connecticut River Mitigation and Enhancement Fund, which was money set aside when the 15-mile Falls dams were relicensed up in northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont. Funded all kinds of great restoration projects, a lot of the tree plantings as well, and they provided the funding to do the monitoring. So real excited. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll give us some more money in 2025 to continue the monitoring. Just the reason being that, we do all these plantings, but we don't want to just walk away from them and hope for the best. We want to ensure that they actually do very well and are successful. So that's why I'm so excited about it, and as well to identify problems to maintain them. And if it's okay, Stacy, I see the next question is also geared towards restoration, asking about whether we get good cooperation from conservation commissions. And I mostly work in Vermont and New Hampshire, and surprisingly, very few towns actually have conservation commissions. But I will say, those that are there, we do work very well with them. One of the projects that we monitored this year and that we will be replanting due to the mortality caused by voles is owned by the town of Newbury, Vermont. We work very closely with the Conservation Commission in setting up, designing the restoration projects, and then in the follow-up maintenance and monitoring. We have another project we're working with the Lancaster, New Hampshire Conservation Commission. They're restoring a large area behind the Lancaster Elementary School. So we're working hand in hand with them to purchase the native plants and get those planted out on the floodplain areas behind this school. So yes, we do have good cooperation. There are not as many of them as you might think, at least in the northern part of the watershed.
Thanks, Fritz. The question about herbicides might go back to Eva regarding the hydrilla. Sorry, I didn't connect to those before.
Yeah, so we don't, CRC ourselves do not do any spraying of herbicides, but we coordinate with the Army Corps of Engineers to do spraying of herbicides for the hydrilla. And they use aquatic herbicides such as endothol or fluoridone to treat hydrilla. And that has proven to not have any substantial health risks or safety risks, I should say.
Stacy, I think that question may have also been to Fritz about the experimental floodplain forest.
Okay.
When he said that we were doing 3 different treatment options.
Yeah, so we do use a glyphosate-based herbicide as part of the treatments. Again, the first step is to mow the field, which is, sort of like haying it, but we don't take the hay off the field. We then rototill it, and then we apply the herbicide, mostly, again, to kill the reed canary grass. We don't really like using the herbicide. We tried 1 year to reduce the concentration, did not work. We've also done some experiments where instead of using herbicide, we rototill multiple times during the growing season. Doesn't really, so far hasn't worked, but we're still trying that. Another option that's been done on a small scale is to actually lay black plastic over the field, but that obviously, that's a huge amount of plastic if you're talking 10 acres. The experimental work was like half an acre or smaller. It's a lot of plastic, but it degrades over time, so now you have a bunch of plastic trash, and obviously the production of plastic has a whole bunch of environmental hazards. So, we're experimenting with alternatives. Currently, the glyphosate-based herbicide that's approved for using near wetlands works the best.
Fritz. Bruce is wondering about our culvert work in 2025. What's on deck for that?
We have another project up in the Nohegan, Bruce. So that's a 5-year cooperative agreement with the Nohegan Wildlife Refuge. It's a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we'll be taking out another culvert. Yeah, we call it a culvert. It's usually a railroad car, that someone stuck in the stream back in the day. It's serving as a pipe. And putting in another bridge. So last year's project was a 38-foot long bridge. Don't have the designs yet for next year's project, but we'll be doing a similar, culvert removal and bridge install. Becky, do we have any other culverts lined up for next year?
Not yet.
We love dam removals, so, culverts are a side gig.
Okay. What, if anything, have we done with beavers in terms of river restoration?
I want to jump in on that one. Ron and I in particular, I know Brett also, our development director as well, we're really keen to undertake some work that essentially emulates how beavers affect water quality, protect and improve river and floodplain habitats. So far, we haven't done anything, but we are definitely seeking projects and actively, discussing possibilities and owners as well as, practitioners. So for those who don't know, there's a lot of interest, especially in the Western United States, of either returning beavers to the landscape. Obviously, we have quite a few already in New England, but returning them to the landscape and then also mimicking what they do out in nature. So one of the approaches is what's called beaver dam analogs. So rather than waiting for a real live beaver to establish, you can go in, pound large stakes, 6-8 foot long stakes into the ground, and then weave willow branches, other native plants between those stakes, essentially creating a wattle, and then plastering it with mud and grass and other vegetation. And what that will do is when you do that out on the floodplain where there's a low wet area, and then when the stream floods, the water will catch against that dam. It'll pool up against the dam. So, you're holding those floodwaters back, but you're also trapping the sediment and other things carried, the woody debris by the stream during flooding. So, beavers are considered a keystone species. They have great impacts on the landscape, and there's a lot of benefits in terms of flooding, water quality, fish and wildlife habitat that come with beavers. So
Yeah,
we're excited to do that, but not yet. We haven't done it yet.
I'll just add that that is part of the $11 million grant that Rebecca talked about, the USDA work that we'll be doing in New Hampshire. We'll be working with Red Start Forestry and their private forestry clients that have already agreed to allow us to do beaver dam analogs. So we'll be doing several of those over the next 5 years.
Thanks. Next is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, new board member. Hello and welcome. Wave so we can see you. Excellent. Your question, I might want to ask you a little more to articulate the question. Wondering how your data collection can work backward or upstream to identify action items within the watershed, such as specific items and flows, identify specific responsible products, producers, distributors. So this sounds like a policy question. Maybe Kathy and some of the other stewards can talk about how are we using the data now, and maybe specifically around identifying the products that we might go after for extended producer responsibility and such.
Yeah, that was around the source to the cleanup, stream cleanups. And so I was just curious, how CRC is utilizing that data to say, hey, you know what, our data show we find a lot of tires. Okay, so what do we do about that? Let's do something with tires, just as an example.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Jeffrey. So we, several years ago, as in conjunction with the Source to Sea cleanup, we started working on direct advocacy around exactly that, like specific things that we find more often. And so some of the results of that, for a period of time, we were choosing to specifically focus on single-use plastics, polystyrene dock floats, because we find a lot of big chunks of polystyrene that breaks down when you get it into a river, and then tires. Those are kind of ongoing efforts that sort of fall into our regular legislative advocacy. So, for instance, in Connecticut, I guess it was 2 years ago now, RIA, our river steward in Connecticut, helped with a coalition that worked on getting extended producer responsibility for tires enacted. It's actually the first in the country. And so I've been trying to use that example in Vermont to also possibly do an EPR for tires. We had a bill introduced in the last session, and we just went through an election cycle. So we're going to have a whole new set of legislators. So that's something that I've been working with some of the solid waste management districts and possibly trying to move again forward in this coming session. So the data collection is important in kind of providing the numbers for us as we attempt to bring that into the advocacy world. So I hope that helps to answer it a little bit.
And I'll just share also that we have what we call our mega tally, which is the 20 plus years of data that we've been collecting on each item. So we can filter it out by state, by community, by water body, and we have a way to report out to a legislator who's looking for that information or other. And we're trying to come up with a way to make that more visible to the community. So we're working on electronically being able to share that total. So for example, if you have been a Source to Sea cleanup group leader, you could go in and see what has been the history of my group's work on X location for the past 5 years, or whatever the metrics are. And if you do have those questions, even though you can't see them publicly, you can always contact me and we can get that info for you. Hope that answers part of your question, or keep drilling down and we'll get more. Steve asks, are wake boats an issue on river ecology? Who wants to tackle that?
I can take it, I guess. So there's been some efforts, both Vermont and New Hampshire have lots and lots of lakes. So there was, and Kate can also jump in on this, for a couple of years now, there's been some efforts in both Vermont and New Hampshire to develop some kind of standards for wake boats and where they can function. Vermont just updated a rule to limit wake boats to lakes of a certain size where they have to, and there's a buffer area from shoreline inches and also in relation to other people, like using kayaks and canoes and things like that on the lake. So that has gone, that was a local effort by one of the lake associations that created a coalition. We attempted to support them with that. So we have a little bit of constraint on how wake boats are used. We also have had in New Hampshire, and Kate can speak to this more, but we are statutorily a member of the New Hampshire Exotic Weeds and Species Committee, and that committee in New Hampshire has also had conversations about concerns around wake boats, and especially the ballast, the potential for expanding the range of aquatic invasive species because of the way that the ballast in wake boats suck in water and then squirt it out again. So we are engaged kind of in those conversations. They're on the main stem Connecticut up here. We have not really, there has not been a lot of wake boat use. And I don't know if that, Ava may have a sense further down in Connecticut if that's more of an issue as you get to bigger water in the lower part of the watershed too.
And I'll hop in on that and say New Hampshire had similar legislative actions come up in the past year regarding where wake boats can be used. That bill ultimately did not go forward, and I expect that will be coming up again in this upcoming session. To answer your question a little bit more directly, yes, it does affect ecology of the system that it's being used on. And people typically think of wake boats being used in lakes, but lakes are connected to rivers, right? And so there are a lot of different ways that the large and very energetic wakes from wake boats can impact both the shoreline ecology and then have indirect impacts to the ecological systems within the water body itself. And feel free to reach out to me if you have additional questions or want more explanation about that. But it is an area of advocacy, at least in New Hampshire and Vermont, that is continuing to move forward as well.
Great. Those are all the questions that are in the chat, and we have about 5 more minutes. If anybody has a question and wants to just come off mute and raise your hand, and we can address. Sandy? Oh, no, sorry, Nancy. Oh, just unmute yourself if you would.
Oh, I thought I did that. Okay.
Perfect. There you go.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to say I love this annual roundup that you guys do. It's
Yay.
amazing. And I so appreciate the level of detail that, collecting data and stuff. I know how tedious it is and how important it is. So I just kudos to all of you and thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. That's heartwarming to hear because I know a lot of people, it's hard to collect all the data, at least for the cleanup. But there's data in all of our work and it is, imperative.
I wish there were hundreds more people on this call today. It's just fabulous.
Well, it is recorded and we do have a lot of folks who sign up. We did get 115 signups. So a lot of people sign up so they can get the recording later. So spread the word. Any other last questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to echo the same thing Nancy said, and also your the emails, like the monthly emails, are super, super helpful. Thank you for putting those out too. That's a great sort of intermediate between these annual meetings. So thank you.
Yes, wonderful. And just to say out loud, we have many different newsletters. So when you go to our ctriver.org/email, you'll see the different ones that you can sign up for, either state specific or for a particular interest area. Okay, so this is a good time to wrap it up. We just want to thank you all so much for being here, and thanks for sharing the kudos, because that helps us keep going and know that we should continue to do this kind of programming. And again, you'll see an email later today, and we ask you, there'll be a little survey. You can give feedback on this presentation, as well as ideas for future live streams and other events. And there'll be a way to contact any of the staff who spoke today or any of the staff who didn't. And yeah, we welcome you to stay in touch with us all year long and get involved and speak up for your rivers wherever you can. Thank you so much.